When you were young, adults probably told you that you were so mature for your age. They meant it as a compliment. But psychology suggests it wasn't a badge of honor, it was a warning sign. Because while other kids were learning how to play, you were learning how to survive. You were reading rooms, managing crises, keeping the peace, becoming the designated adult before you even hit puberty. You didn't get to be a child. You were too busy raising yourself. Psychologists call this parentification. But here's what they don't tell you. That pressure didn't just leave scars, it forged strength. You developed a depth of capability, empathy, and resilience that most people will never reach. You've already mastered survival. Now it's time to learn how to thrive. The recognition. If you're watching this, something probably already clicked. Maybe you're the friend everyone calls in a crisis, the one who gives advice but never asks for it, the reliable one, the strong one. But here's what nobody sees. You're exhausted. Because being mature for your age wasn't a personality trait, it was a survival strategy. And survival strategies that work in childhood become prisons in adulthood. In a minute, we're going to go through the 3 invisible patterns that are still running your life, and why recognizing them is the first step to breaking free. You were maybe 7, 8, 9 years old, and you learned that if you could just be good enough, calm enough, responsible enough, maybe the chaos would stop. Maybe mom would stop drinking. Maybe dad would come home. Maybe your parents would stop fighting. So you became the mediator, the caretaker, the emotional support animal for adults who should have been taking care of you. And it worked, sort of. You survived. But survival isn't the same as living. The 3 invisible patterns. Here are the 3 patterns that parentified children carry into adulthood. Pattern number 1, hyper-responsibility. You feel responsible for everyone's emotions. When someone's upset, you instinctively start problem-solving. When there's conflict, you're already strategizing how to fix it. You can't watch a movie without analyzing the character's emotional states. This isn't empathy, it's hypervigilance in disguise. Your nervous system is still scanning for threats, except now the threat is someone being disappointed in you. Pattern number 2, difficulty receiving. People call you generous, giving, and thoughtful, but when someone tries to help you, you deflect, you minimize. You say, "I'm fine," even when you're not. Because asking for help wasn't safe when you were young. The adults in your life couldn't handle their own problems. How could they handle yours? So you learned, needing something equals being a burden. Pattern number 3, the competence trap. You're exceptionally good at adulting. Bills paid on time, stable job. Life looks perfect from the outside. But inside, you feel a little empty. Because you never learned who you are beneath all that capability. In a moment, we'll go through the paradox that keeps most parentified adults stuck, and the counterintuitive truth about what actually heals this pattern. But first, let's talk about what's really happening in your nervous system. Why your body won't let you rest. Here's where it gets interesting. People tell you to practice self-care. Light a candle, take a bath, journal your feelings. And you do it. You check all the boxes. But it feels like you're performing relaxation rather than experiencing it. That's because your nervous system isn't looking for bubble baths. It's looking for safety. And safety, in your experience, has never come from being still. When you were a kid, stillness meant danger. It meant you weren't monitoring the situation. It meant someone else might fall apart and you wouldn't be ready. So your body learned rest equals risk. Even now, when you finally sit down, your mind immediately starts racing. Did I forget something? Is someone upset with me? What problem am I not seeing? This isn't anxiety. This is a survival strategy that your 8-year-old self installed, and your adult self is still running on autopilot. Your friends can watch Netflix without planning their week. You're 3 episodes in and already mentally organizing tomorrow's to-do list. They ask, why can't you just chill? Because chilling never kept you safe before. Hypervigilance did. The grief you're not allowed to feel. Here's what rarely gets talked about. There's a grief underneath all of this. Not the grief of losing someone, but the grief of losing something inside yourself. You grieve the version of you that trusted easily, The version that laughed without checking if it was too loud. The version that didn't rehearse conversations 3 times before having them. You grieve the kid who got to be irresponsible, who got to make mistakes without consequences, who got to need things without feeling like a burden. How do you explain you're homesick for a version of yourself you barely remember? How do you tell someone you miss a childhood you never actually got to live? Most people don't understand this loss because it's invisible. You didn't lose a person, you lost a possibility. The possibility of being carefree. The possibility of being young. The possibility of being just a kid. And nobody gave you permission to be sad about that. Because you turned out fine. Because it could have been worse. Because at least you're strong now. But here's the truth they don't tell you. You can be grateful for your strength and still grieve what it cost you. Those two things can exist simultaneously. This grief doesn't break you, but ignoring it does. Because every time you tell yourself, "I'm fine," you're abandoning that kid all over again. The one who needed someone to say, "That shouldn't have been your job." What actually changes everything? So here's the shift that changes everything. And it's going to sound counterintuitive. The path forward isn't about becoming less capable. It's about reclaiming your right to be a mess sometimes. You don't need to learn competence. You've already mastered it. What you need is permission to be incompetent, to be needy, to fall apart without immediately pulling yourself together. Because the wound wasn't that you had to be strong. The wound was that you were never allowed to be weak. This week, be bad at something on purpose. Show up late. Ask a stupid question. Let someone see you struggle without swooping in to prove you've got it handled. Your nervous system needs evidence that the world doesn't collapse when you're not holding it together. Next, tell someone, "I'm struggling," without the follow-up of, "But I'm handling it." Just let the struggle exist in the space between you and another person. Don't fix it. Don't minimize it. Just let it be. This will feel excruciating. Do it anyway. And finally, do one completely pointless thing this week. Not productive joy, not self-improvement disguised as fun. Pure, useless, childlike joy. Build a blanket fort. Finger paint. Jump in puddles. Dance badly to music nobody else can hear. Your inner kid has been waiting decades for permission to play. The real ending. Here's what nobody tells you about people who grew up too fast. They don't just survive. They become something rare. They develop an uncanny ability to spot pain in others because they memorized that language fluently. A shift in your tone? They caught it. That forced smile? They're already planning how to check in without making it weird. They become lighthouses, not because their life was gentle, but because they learned to navigate storms that would have broken others. A lighthouse doesn't shine because it's perfect. It shines because it remembers the darkness. So yeah, you were mature for your age. But maturity isn't supposed to be survival. Real maturity is knowing you don't have to survive anymore. You're allowed to be messy. You're allowed to need people. You're allowed to take up space with your feelings, your needs, your beautiful, complicated humanness. You've spent your whole life proving you could handle anything. Now it's time to discover what you can create when you're not just handling things.